Awesomenauts is going free to play after 5 years of being a paid-for game. Oh, God, I'm gonna die. That was a terrible way to start a video. Anyways, Awesomenauts is going free to play after being 5 years of a paid product, and basically I'm actually surprised it's even alive because I didn't particularly like it, but I knew it was a pretty good game. And so its free to play transition kind of doesn't really surprise me, but at the same time, it surprises me how long it actually took it. Not because it was a bad game, actually, it's actually a fantastic game. It's a 2D side-scrolling Moba, which is actually fairly original, and it's actually done fairly well. It just happened to not be a game for me. That said, everyone's been saying it should go free to play for quite a while. Let's go ahead and talk about it. Michael here with another topic video. So yeah, basically Awesomenauts, if you've never played it, it is a 2D MOBA, and it's actually really, really cool. And I kind of like the idea of it. It ended up being a little bit more casual than I would have liked, and it did kind of have some sort of design elements I wasn't a fan of. However, it was definitely a game that I had some friends that actually enjoyed it quite a bit. However, none of them actually still play it, which is probably the reasons why they're actually going free to play. One of the things that I heard a lot when they ended up kind of, announcing the game and ended up releasing it, and I ended up being able to play in the beta of it, was the fact that it should be free to play because they were worried about the player base, and apparently they've been able to keep it up until now. So basically they're going on the free to play because basically they just want more players, because the game has never really had a lot of players, at least from my perspective. I obviously didn't keep playing the game because I didn't really enjoy it myself. But I always hear people talking about how they never were able to really find games for it. And so it was one of those situations to where it might have ended up struggling quite a lot in certain cases because it just didn't have the player base for it. And the developer has always kind of talked about going free to play. So it's kind of interesting that they finally decided, all right, you know what? We don't want our game to die after 5 years. Let's go ahead and just make the transition. So I think it's actually pretty cool. Let's go ahead and talk about the details of this transition, because it's not going to be 100%, oh, we're just going to move to free to play and it's going to be exactly the same game. It's not just going to be a free game anymore. They're actually changing up some of these sort of monetization methods, I guess you could say. Now, the current model that they currently go off of is basically there is the base game, and then you have DLC kind of upgrade packs. At least that's what it appears from my perspective. And so basically you buy these packs and then you get access to new characters and new content and stuff like that. Now, they're getting away with that. And so basically what they're going to be doing is they're going to make it so that everyone can access all the content. However, they're introducing a new currency, which you earn from playing the game, supposedly. And then basically this currency, I think, was called Awesome Points or something lame like that, because of course it is, because it's Awesomenauts, so it's got to be awesome. And basically these points would then be required to unlock new characters, unlock new content, and whatever else they have in the game at this period in time. They've changed it up quite a bit since I've played, so apologies if I don't know all the systems and everything like that inside the game. Now, the coolest part about this is they have said that existing players will be able to kind of have the access to their content they already have unlocked. So let's say you have the base game, you'll have access to all the base characters and all the base sort of kind of content and everything like that. And so basically you're not going to be like missing content because of the free to play transition. They're not taking anything away from you, which is actually pretty cool. And they also have a pack called the All Knots pack, which is basically going to give you all the characters, current and future characters, for that similar cost. And then basically if you have all the DLCs currently, then you'll actually get this pack automatically. And so basically if you already have all the DLC, you're going to have all the DLC characters for all time, which is actually also really, really cool. And I like the idea that they're kind of making sure that players don't just like all of a sudden, oop, I just got hit by a bunch of snowballs. Whoopsie. And then basically this is actually one of those situations where I'm actually quite happy with them kind of making sure that nobody's end up losing content from the free-to-play transitions, which is something we've seen happen a lot in these sort of free-to-play transitions. And I think that this is one that could end up going fairly smooth because of that fact. Being able to kind of make sure that players still have the content they paid for is a good thing. And, it's really easy to look at ones that ended up failing as well. And a lot of kind of free-to-play transitions don't end up going well, but I'm actually having some high hopes for this one because, as I said before, while I didn't actually enjoy the game all that much myself, it was an interesting title and it does a lot of interesting things. And it is inside the MOBA genre, which is a genre that is so difficult for any developer to really get into. And since they did something original with it, I actually have high hopes that it can end up being a fairly good niche title, which is also one of the reasons I'm kind of surprised that it ended up having a player base. Once again, not because it was bad. I just want to make sure that no one thinks that I think it's a bad game, because it's not. But, it's one of those things where this is a niche game. And so making it free to play is going to make it so that more players are going to be able to try it. And they're going to be like, oh, hey, I actually like this quite a bit. And so they can end up getting a lot of players that way. And this is something that I'm not necessarily understanding why they didn't do this earlier. Now, I suppose the idea was that they thought their, monetization method and everything like that would keep them alive, and it did. So that's actually quite fortunate, because it would be unfortunate if the game ended up just dying outright. But I think that it would have been more probably beneficial if it would have gone free to play earlier. I think that having those DLC packs, because the game was on sale quite a bit, and I think this is one of the reasons why I ended up surviving for so long, is the fact that it did have all these DLC packs. It'd be like, oh, well, here's this, and then it would end up having, these sort of sales and stuff like that on the base game, and then they get players into it, and they'd be like, oh, well, okay, I'll buy these DLC packs, because they had like a fan base and everything like that, which is one of the reasons why they're able to kind of keep it alive. However, that DLC system also kind of draws people away, and I'm worried that maybe too many people might have tried it. Like, let's say myself, for example, because I've already tried the game, and so it's kind of already lost its first impressions. Now, I might go back to it, because it's going free to play. There's going to be no loss to it. I think I own the game, actually, so I could end up just going back to it now if I wanted to, because owners of the game right now are able to access the free-to-play beta and everything like that, so you can end up testing out their systems and seeing what it's like. They are doing some balance changes with it as well, but, that is something we'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, it's one of those things where I'm worried that it might have ended up scaring people away, because when you end up trying a game and then you look at it and it's like, oh, well, now there's all this DLC I gotta buy to, end up playing the game or whatever, that kind of puts people off, and ruining that first impression could end up ruining the first impression or the impressions of the game in general. And so they could end up not really wanting to go back and try, even though it's free to play. Let's say, for example, this is one I love to bring up because it was an absolutely terrible example, but Evolve. Evolve did a terrible job of doing its free-to-play transition. Now, one of the major things that Evolve did wrong was the fact that it kind of made it so it screwed over people who actually bought the game and put a lot of money into it, because they didn't get to keep all the content and yada yada. But aside from that, one of the reasons why I feel like that ended up not doing as well as it did, because basically people had already played the game and they're already like, oh, well, I don't like that game, so I'm not even going to go back to it, even though they completely changed the game and basically made it an entirely new product. And yes, it was still the same gameplay loop and everything like that, but they did a lot of things to kind of improve it. And I feel like Awesomenauts is probably going to do the same thing, and they've been constantly updating it and keeping it alive and everything like that. That's why it's, still going after 5 years. But ruining that first impression is not going to be a good thing. And so, yeah, I'm just worried that that's going to be a problem in the future. And maybe it won't be. Maybe it's going to be one of those games that, maybe not enough people have tried it. Or maybe they actually have it in their library. Like, let's say for me, example, I could end up being like, oh, hey, I'll go back to it. And I could end up, enjoying the new content that they have in the game. And maybe I'll end up enjoying it more than I did before. And so, yeah, you just never know. But regardless, I think that they're going in a good direction. And one of the things I am worried about is their whole sort of changing up systems. One thing that I did read, I don't have confirmation on this or not, but they may be removing the offline mode, or maybe already have, or something along those lines, which would be a bit unfortunate, because basically I like the offline mode. That's what I actually played when I did play it for a little while. And back when I played it originally, there was no people playing online. It was basically a system of, hey, we got to play the offline mode to even play the game. I'm glad they ended up finding players eventually, but yeah, so that's going to be unfortunate. So that also means that if they don't end up getting player bases, that's going to end up killing the game. I wish they would end up doing maybe sort of a split product, and so maybe people that already bought the game would still have access to an older version of it, and so it'd be like, oh, well, here's the offline mode that was in the original game. You can still play that. That would actually be really, really cool to end up doing. But I don't know if they're going to end up doing that, or if they even have a way to do that. And maybe they don't want to, because they want people to be playing online, because they want this network to keep alive. They want people to be able to keep playing the game, because basically if the game doesn't have any players, it's not going to, have anybody to play with. You need players to play a multiplayer game. But I'm actually really glad that it's still going, and I think it's a really, really cool thing that it's actually going free to play, finally. Because that is one thing that a lot of people ended up mentioning back in the early days. They're all like, hey, why isn't this free to play? Literally, I remember in the sort of beta thread that they had and everything like that on their forums, they were like, hey, why don't we make this free to play? Because basically they were worried about it dying, because back in that day and age, aka 5 years ago, free to play was this big new thing and everyone was going for it, and it was really, really popular and very, very successful for a reason. And then there was all these sort of small multiplayer games that kind of everyone was making, all the indie devs and stuff like that, and they ended up all failing because basically they couldn't keep a player base, which was ridiculous. So hopefully this ends up going well for them, though. I really like to see original games, even if they're not games I particularly enjoy. end up doing well, because I might end up revisiting it. I know a lot of people have ended up saying like, hey, this is a good game and everything like that, and they've done a lot to improve it and stuff like that. So yeah, I might go back to it, but I might not. It's a 2D Sidescrolling MOBA. If you've never played it, it's actually fairly decent. I just didn't really like the simplicity aspects to it, and I didn't really like the gameplay loop. I already play a lot of MOBAs, and so basically going into one that I've already played probably isn't going to be 100% interesting to me, so I might not, but we'll see. Obviously, it's going to be free to play, and maybe that'll end up having some of my friends jumping on it, and so maybe I'll end up playing with some friends. I think that's probably going to be one of the big aspects if I do end up going back. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Michael with another topic video talking about Awesomenauts going free to play, which is interesting because that's a game I tried so long ago. Like 5 years is a very long time. Like that was before I was even doing YouTube stuff or really any sort of useful things with my life. And so basically, yeah, it's actually really cool to see that it's actually still alive in the first place. And it's unfortunate that its player base has never really been large, but at the same time, this free-to-play thing might end up helping them. Game in the background has been League of Legends, one of the MOBAs that I end up playing quite a lot. This is probably my favorite MOBA of all of them because basically I'm a noob and I like League of Legends. Deal with it. If you don't like League of Legends, that's the thing. I know some people don't. That's whatever. Also, apologies as a side note to people who watch my channel regularly. I haven't really been able to record anything recently, and I apologize if this video ended up having any graphical or audio glitches because basically I've been having a bunch of technical problems that have basically made it impossible for me to record recently. So yeah, basically it's a little bit complex. And League of Legends is one of the only games that is actually capturing right now, so hopefully I can get that fixed soon. But regardless, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this one. And also, if you end up trying Awesomenauts or you played it recently and you know that you're going to be playing the free-to-play version, make sure to let me know. Maybe we can hit each other up for some multiplayer. I don't know. I still don't know 100% if I'm going to end up retrying it or not, because that first impressions thing, I don't know. It's like, I didn't like it back then, so I don't know if I'll like it now. I guess now that I've talked about it so much, I should probably retry it just for the sake of retrying it. But I don't know. I'll see if I get time. But regardless, you know, what do you guys think of this whole free-to-play transition? Are they doing things right? Are they doing things wrong? Did I miss any details? I don't really know a lot about it because obviously I don't play it. So I've basically been going off of what other people have said and what their sort of blog posts and news articles have said. And so basically, yeah, that's all I got. So basic research, that's what I got. And basically, if there's anything else that's kind of missing from the game that you think, or maybe you actually have the game and you have access to this free-to-play version, you know, any thoughts that you guys have, leave them in the comments. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and finish up this match that we're sort of losing, but I think we can come back, especially if I stop talking and actually end up playing for once, because I basically could have shielded a lot of people and probably end up saving their lives, and I just haven't, because basically I'm trying to make a video, which is a bad idea. League of Legends is probably one of the worst videos to actually, or worst games to actually try to talk in front of. But I'm going to stop rambling. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video, which will hopefully be tomorrow if this whole capture thing is fixed. I really hope so, because I'm so sick of Windows 10 forced updates because it basically blows everything up. And I've been slain. I guess I got blown up like Windows 10 updates.